Hi Tamers, and welcome back to another deck profile. As always, I'm Regina or Regigglypuff, and today we are checking out Ice Snow, or I guess you could also call it Sword Strip, depending on which way you want to go about it. Now, the reason I decided to build this deck is really, in all honesty, is because I pulled two Suzune Altarts, and she's really pretty to look at, and I went, yeah, sure, why not? I will say this is probably one of the decks that I built for this set that does require a little bit more cards outside of EX-08, because spoiler alert, there's not a lot of Ice Snow trait Digimon out there. So kind of had to work with what we had and what Bandai has given us so far. So you'll see a lot of lists that are probably really similar, but let's just get into it. So we're going to start off with just the 4 eggs, and these are going to be the Hiyarimon. This is a when attacking, if your opponent has no Digimon with digivolution cards, you draw one. This also counts for if you, if they have like 0 Digimon on the field, because there is no Digimon on there that have any digivolution cards. The reason I'm not running a 5th egg, like some people might, is because the Penguinmon that I'm going to show you evos for 1 on regular level 2s, but only evos for 0 on top of Hiyarimon. And I don't like having to pay 1 for my rookies unless I absolutely have to. So we're just going to stick with the 4 for right now. You could add in a 5th egg. Bulucomon is always nice. And then with the way this deck works sometimes too, the Karoon also works, the one that says when you play a Digimon by and from the sources you can draw 1. But our rookies are going to be a 4 of the Penguinmon from this set. This is going to be the one that says your turn when this Digimon would digivolve into a Digimon with the Ice Snow trait. You can reduce the cost by 1. That is all of your level 4s, so you'll always be evoing your level 4s for 1 less, which is really nice memory-wise. The Inherit is okay in my opinion. When you attack, you give one of your opponent's Digimon security attack -1 until the end of the turn. It's just a nice way that if you can't clear your opponent's board or you can't like have lethal that turn, that you can at least make sure that they cannot attack you back and that they're forced to attack your Digimon, which is its own set of problems, but at least it's not your security. So Hiyarimon is definitely, Penguinmon is definitely at a 4 of, because it's a good cost reduction rookie. The next one that we're going to have at another 4 of is going to be Bulucomon. So this is going to be the rare from EX7. It does also have the rule of having Ice Snow in its type. This is a searcher, so we're running a 4 of this because you look at the top 3 and then you add card with Paledramon or Hexeblaumon in its name, and then 1 card with Ice Snow trait among them to your hand, and then you return the rest of the bottom of the deck. So it searches for itself if you need it, but it searches for almost everything in the deck outside of Tamers and outside of options. There have been times when you could whiff with this, and that's just part and parcel of running a searcher, but 90% of the time you should be able to pick up 2 pieces. Will they be the pieces you need for the deck? Probably not, but it's better to be able to pick up 2 pieces than to not pick up anything at all. So it'll search all of like your 4, 5s, and 6s, and again, it can search itself because it is the Ice Snow type. So you can search it for itself and then search the rest of the line for like the Paledramon and the Hexeblaumon. Or if you're kind of unlucky on there, you can find the Ice Snow parts and then just have to give up something else. But this is a really good way of fixing your hand. If you have these 2 in your opening hand, great way to start the game off, right? You just evo and then search because it helps you a lot. And then our last rookies are actually going to be 3 SnowAgumons. These are also Ice Snow types. The reason I like this one is because it has Ice Clad, and Ice Clad, if you are not familiar with it quite yet, is instead of doing battle through DP, you do battle through sources. So the more sources you have, the stronger your Digimon is in comparison to your opponent's Digimon. So this is basically, if your opponent has a Digimon with no sources on it and you have the egg on here, you basically win the Ice Clad matchup. I did ask a judge last night, and I will double check it just to make sure, but Ice Clad is always active, so even if they're attacking you with a DP that's lower, if they have more sources, they will win in that matchup, because this Digimon, other than by security battles, does battle through sources. So both the Buluco and the SnowAgumon have the same inherit, which is when attacking, you trash the top card of one of your opponent's Digimon, so you can do the when attacking first to strip the sources and then have more sources for the Ice Clad effect. But that is all the rookies. At one point I did test out the Gomon on here, but it never really showed up in any of my testing, and as much as I like having that extra body, it just wasn't worth it to have in the rookie slot. So moving on to our level 4s, we're actually going to start with the Paledramons. These are also from EX7 and also treated as having the Ice Snow type. This is a when digivolving, you trash the bottom 2 sources of one of your opponent's Digimon, and then if they have no Digimon with digivolution cards, it gains jamming and blocker until the end of your opponent's turn. This is actually pretty important, the wording on this, because it means any of their Digimon on the field, none of them can have evolution sources. So it is a little bit tricky to kind of get there for the jamming and blocking, but if you get this early on in the game, it's actually a lot easier because it is also the same concept of if they have 0 Digimon on the field if they have 0 Digimon on the field, all that counts as having 0 Digimon with sources, right? They also say when attacking, you trash the top card of one of your opponent's Digimon. Just keep in mind you should be reading some of these carefully because they do strip sources from different areas of the Digimon. As some do it from the top, some do it from the bottom, and then some let you just choose on your own. So please pay careful attention to it because it does sort of matter how you're evolving into stuff, right? The next set of level 4s is going to be Frigimon. This is the Frigimon from this set, which is EX-08. It also has Ice Clad. The Paledramon actually does not have Ice Clad, so please keep that in mind too. But this one has Ice Clad for the Frigimon. It has an on-play and a 1 Digivolving effect, so you trash the bottom 2 Digivolution sources of one of your opponent's Digimon, and then if they have no Digimon with any sources, you gain a memory back. So, if you're really, really lucky, this is a free Evo with the Penguinmon, and then if you're super lucky, this is just a 4-drop body that you can play to gain back some memory. But please keep in mind that that it does trash the bottom 2 versus some of the other ones. The inherit for the Frigimon is also the same as the Penguinmon, so as you can see, the blue and yellow will also have the same inherit on this one, which is going to be security attack -1. So you could give it to 2 different Digimon. I've done it before, and then it hasn't mattered because I've gotten rid of it, right? But it's still nice to be able to say, hey, you have +2 checks. I'm going to make sure you only have like just +1 instead, or you can stack it on both. And then the last set of level 4s, we're going to run out the Sorcermon. This one I had to kind of really look for because again, not a lot of ice snows in here. It has blocker and has an on-play effect where if your opponent has no Digimon with Digivolution cards, one of your Digimon unsuspends. There's a neat little thing you can do with this one with the level 6s in this set. But the one attacking is also you trash the top Digivolution card of one of your opponent's Digimon. So, again, please read the cards carefully. I know there's a joke out there that TCG players can't read. Please don't prove them correct. The sources kind of matter in that one. So that's it for the level 4s. This is a very interesting one. I maybe would think about if you really wanted to, you could change it to some of the hybrid stuff. Actually, I will let you know there is no hybrids in this deck. I was considering putting in the Kumamon, but for right now, the reason I did not put any of the hybrids in here is because the new hybrids, like the dual color hybrids, are really expensive for this, and I'm not planning on running the Tommies. Another spoiler alert. And then now onto our level 5s, we're running 4 of the CrysPaledramon. This one is Ice Clad, and it does have a 1 Digivolving effect. You trash any 2 Digivolution cards under your opponent's Digimon, and then if they have no Digimon with Digivolution cards, it unsuspends. So, ideally, right, you can Evo to the Paledramon, get the jamming and blocker, swing, you're like, oh cool, I don't die, and then you have enough memory to Evo into the CrysPaledramon, unsuspend and get another check-in. It has happened a couple of times, but a lot of stuff has to work for that. But if you can get it really early on, it's not as difficult. The inherit for this one, though, is a little bit different. So the inherit is when your opponent has no Digimon with Digivolution cards, this Digimon with the Ice Snow trait gains Piercing and Security Attack +1. So that does matter for some of the 6s in this deck. Excuse me. And then we're actually only running 8 level 5s, so the other 4 level 5s here are going to be the Paledramon from this set. I love this card so much. It also has Ice Clad, and it has an on-play 1 Digivolving just like the Frigimon. You trash any 2 sources from your opponent's Digimon, and then one of their Digimon with no sources can't suspend or activate 1 Digivolving effects until the end of the turn. This is a hard stun, so even if they Digivolve, it doesn't go away. This is really nice to be able to, excuse me, you don't have to worry about aces, right? Because aces have 1 Digivolving effects, and so this really stops that. I actually had a game last night where I stunned a level 6, and I totally forgot that they picked up an ace that was a level 7. And when I asked them about it afterwards, they went, well, you can't have 1 Digivolving effects. And I went, oh, wait, you're absolutely correct about that. So it's really nice, especially if you can figure out what your opponent's trying to do on their turn. You can stop their game plan by saying, hey, that Digimon can't suspend, that Digimon can't have 1 Digivolving effects. And it kind of forces them to rethink their strategy. The inherit is the same as the CrysPaledramon in here. While your opponent has no Digimon with Digivolution sources, this Digimon with Ice Snow trait gets Piercing and Security Attack +1. So I do love that, excuse me, that you can get the Piercing because Ice Clad also helps a lot. So you can get over level 6s and 7s if you have the right amount of source strip. And then finally, we're going to get into our level 6s. So the level 6s, we're going to start off with a 4 of the Scot Imon. We just have to, right? This is what the deck is really about, and this is the card that kind of made me want to run it. Scot Imon does have a regular Evo cost of 4 over level 5s, but only a 3 over Ice Snow with traits. The same thing for the rest of its line. That would be the Frigimon and the Paledramon as well. So it has a barrier as well, so if the Digimon will be deleted in battle, so that includes security battles, you can trash the top card in your security stack to prevent that deletion. So, when Digivolving, you can play a level 4 or lower Ice Snow trait Digimon card from your hand without paying the cost, and then for each of your opponent's Digimon with no sources, you can add to that level's maximum. So at minimum, you can play your Frigimon, gain back some memory, and at max, you could technically play another Scot Imon if you really wanted to. Not really a reason to, because it does not have a on-play effect. That would be so cool. But it also has a secondary when Digivolving effect, which is by placing one Digimon with no Digivolution as the bottom security card, it unsuspends. So if you were to swing with a CrysPaledramon or like the Paledramon, and then you evo to a Scot Imon, you could put either your Digimon with no sources or one of your opponent's Digimon with no sources back into their security, and then have this Digimon unsuspend. The Scot Imon is a champ. It got me 4 checks at one point because the Inherit is still active when there's no Digimon on the field. So it was just evo, play something out, swing, tuck something into security, 2 checks, unsuspend, 2 checks again. There have been points where I've had to barrier, and that is a choice you have to make about whether or not you think it's worth it to keep the Scot Imon alive. Reminder, it does have Ice Clad, so at this point you should have all the sources in there, so you should have the 2, the 3, the 4, the 5, so they need at least 4 sources, which is easier and easier now with X antibodies, so I think it would just really depend on what deck your opponent is playing. If you think your opponent can get up to that 6 really fast, or if they have access to a lot of X antibodies in their deck, I would be very careful about barriering or just like letting the Digimon delete. Because sometimes it's not worth it to negate yourself on your own, like go negative on your own security to keep this on the field if they're just going to be able to run it over, right? So there's a 4 Scotty. I have 1 Hexeblaumon. Because Hexeblaumons are expensive, please do not be fooled by this. I am borrowing this from someone who was kind enough to be like, I'm not using it right now, you can borrow it for the deck. That's why it's so pretty. Hexeblaumons are expensive because they're good. They are a 4-cost evolution though, so please keep that in mind. There is no cost reduction for them on their evolution. They also have security attack +1 and Ice Clad. I've been playing a lot of Slay the Spire, I'm so sorry. So when Digivolving, you trash any 4 cards from underneath your opponent's Digimon. So you can pick and choose. You can choose any 4. And then if they have no Digimon with Digivolution cards, you return one of their Tamers to the bottom of the deck. So at this point, you should be source stripping a lot of stuff, and in conjunction with some of the Tamers that you have, this means that you can bottom deck a Tamer, and there is a lot of good Tamers out there to bottom deck lately. So reminder that once they have a Digimon with no sources, or if any Digimon or no Digimon with any sources, you can bottom deck one of their Tamers. And then on their turn, none of their Digimon with as many or fewer Digivolution cards as this Digimon can suspend. So it also has Ice Snow type, but this means that if you have the full stack, so that's 4 sources, anything that doesn't basically evo multiple times in the next antibody can't suspend. So they can still block on their turn because it's only on your opponent's turn, but that means they can't attack. And that's really rough for a lot of decks out there that play like bodies that don't really have a reason to evo. So Nightmare Soldier matchup is actually pretty interesting with this because a lot of their bodies can't suspend. The Birds matchup is a nightmare. I've played it on both sides now, and it's not super great once a Hexeblaumon is on the field. If you can run 2, go ahead and run 2. Again, Hexeblaumons are expensive, and I am just borrowing this one, so thanks Caesar for letting me borrow it. But yeah, if you can run 2 Hexeblaumons, do it. If you're like me and can't afford them right now or don't want to pay for them because they are pricey and you don't run blue usually, you can do my favorite card for this one right now, and I call it my little secret spicy tech, is Ryugumon's. I think this card is really funny. Ryugumon is unfortunately not Ice Snow or does not have any of the Paledramons or like Hexeblaumon, obviously the same. It is actually treated as an aquatic type because as you can see, it's definitely in the water. It is a 4-cost evo as well, which is a little steep in terms of level 6, but it's freaking hilarious. It has a when Digivolving effect. You can play a level 4 or lower blue Digimon card from the sources without paying the cost, so you could technically play a Frigimon and make this a 3-cost evolution. More importantly, at the end of your turn, you can bottom deck one of your Digimon. So by returning one of your Digimon to the bottom of your deck, you return one of your opponent's Digimon with as high or lower level as that same one. So 9 times out of 10, I'll return the Ryugumon. And you're asking, but Regina, why would you do that? It's because it has this thing called decode. Decode is silly, everyone. So when this Digimon would leave the battle area, other than in battle, you can play a level 5 blue Digimon card from its sources without paying the cost. So you could be, hi, end of turn. Oh, so like you went, when digivolving, right? You have like a Frigimon and you have like a Paledramon and you go, when digivolving, I'm going to play out the Frigimon. I'm going to gain back a memory. Oh no, my turn is over. I'm going to bottom deck. I'm going to take this Ryugumon and I'm going to bottom deck. I'm going to activate Decode. I'm going to play out this Paledramon. Now that Digimon can't. Now another Digimon probably can't suspend or Digimon. So you can stun 2 bodies technically. But then at that point, you also have 2 bodies out on the field for your opponent to deal with. And yeah, you lost to level 6, but it's at the bottom of your deck, and you can probably search into it pretty easily. It is very funny to be able to just be like, yeah, I'm just going to Evo and bottom deck that level 6, or I'm going to bottom deck that level 5, and still have 2 bodies out on the field potentially. So Ryugumon to me is like just very funny, and it's a very nice alternative to Hexeblaumon if you can. If you do have 2 Hexeblaumon, I would probably go 2 Hexa and 1 Ryugu, just because I still think the Ryugu is funny and it gets you out bodies a little bit more. So that's it for the Digimon. We're going to go into our Tamers, and of course the lady who started it all, Miss Suzune Kazuki. She is from this set. She's super cool, and I love her. She is a 3-cost Liberator Tamer, which means she has the same sort of start of main phase trigger as almost all of them do, which is start of main phase. If your opponent has a Digimon, you gain a memory. So at minimum, if you're playing her and your opponent has a Digimon, you are starting with 2 memory almost always. So, what's neat about this too is all turns, when your Digimon are played or digivolve, if any of them have the Ice Snow trait, by suspending this Tamer, you trash any digivolution source from your opponent's Digimon. It only won't work for Ryugumon, but it'll work for everything else. So you can hard play it, you can Evo, that means you can strip the source as long as you tap it. This means that your Frigimons will strip 3 sources, that means your Hexeblaumon will strip 5 sources, etc., etc. It's really nice to make sure that you could meet the 0 evolution card requirement. I love her. The reason I'm not running her as 4 is because of other... this deck is kind of memory hungry sometimes, like most decks are. And I did have her at 4 originally, but it just never felt like it was enough because at a certain point she stops being a little bit useful in that sense. So 3 felt like the sweet spot for me. I am also running a Joe Kido from BT14. This has an on-play effect if you trash a digivolution source from your opponent's Digimon. And then on your turn, when a digivolution card of an opponent's Digimon is trashed, you can suspend the Tamer to gain a memory. So it makes things a little bit more palatable. Again, this is going back to the Frigimon because this is probably one of my favorite cards in the deck. You can gain the memory back, so you can gain back 2 memory technically with the Joe as well. But it also makes it so that your evolution costs feel a little bit less bad. Just because the Ryugu and the Hexeblaumon do Evo for 4, so if you can mitigate that a little bit earlier, it's nice. And some decks aren't running memory tamers, so being able to like memory choke them is really important, especially because the more memory you have, obviously, the more stuff you can do, right? And then one of our other blue tamers is going to be the 4-cost Matt Ishida from BT1. Oh god, it feels so weird to still be playing cards from BT1, y'all. It took me forever to find this card. But this is a memory tamer, so start on your main phase. If you don't have 3 memory, you go to 3. And then on your turn, when you play a blue Digimon, you can suspend this to trash the bottom digivolution card of one of your opponent's Digimon. I just like this again for extra source strip. I think some of us take for granted how important inherits really are in this format because all of a sudden you don't get one attacking effects. And then especially for X-Antibody Digimon, if you can source strip their protoforms or the X-Antibody Digimon that gives them their little X-Antibody as active, it's really nice. Obviously, you cannot trash regular X-Antibody because X-Antibody says it cannot be trashed, if I remember correctly. It's been a while since I've looked at it. I've been playing with protoforms. Oops. But I think the deck needed a memory tamer, and Matt seemed like the best blue one to use. I do have one more blue tamer in this. It is also a 4-cost and not a memory tamer. Sora Takenouchi and Joe Kido, or more colloquially known as Sorjo. This is start of your turn. If your opponent has a Digimon, so any single Digimon that has 0 sources in it, you gain 2 memory. 90% of the time, you're going to be starting at 3 memory with this because that 2 memory will almost always be active since they have since you'll be doing so much source stripping, right? And then on your turn, when you attack with a blue Digimon, which, dang, that's so crazy, all of our Digimon are blue, you can suspend this to trash to the bottom 2 digivolution cards of 1 Digimon. So some of the cards in here let you pick and choose which Digimon. Sorjo specifically says you trash up to 2 digivolution cards from the bottom of 1 of them. That card was the bane of my existence in BT7, and I cannot believe I am playing it. Past me would be in shambles. But that's it for the Tamers. We're going to finish this up with the options. With the LM set comes with the scrambles, and scrambles are great. It makes a lot of your hefty evolution costs a little bit cheaper. You pay 2, you evo for reduced cost of 3, so you'll still pay for 1 for these. So you're basically paying what a normal price would be for level 6. And then scrambles, obviously at the start of your training from if your opponent has a Digimon, you can choose to delay. So you can either place a blue Digimon card from your trash on top, and then if you have no Digimon, you can play something out that has 2000 DP or less from your trash. It's a nice way to fix whatever might be wrong with your hand. I am loving scrambles more and more the more that I play with them. I don't think I would ever go past 2 in a deck, because after you play them, they just kind of sit there until you have a reason to use them in terms of like, oh, I'm missing this piece, so it's time to do this. And then the gamble aspect of it is a little rough for me still, because trying to figure out the ratios that I have in the deck and be like, oh, can I draw it potentially without having to use the scramble, is a game you'd have to play on your own. And then our other 2 cost options in here are going to be mental trainings. I'm running 3 of them. Nice for the searches because you can pick up everything in the deck, and then just nice for the cost reduction. Obviously, I would never use it from the Penguin one because the Penguin one already has it, but it's really nice for the Hexeblaumon and the Ryugus, and it's just nice to be able to look at the top 2. So trainings I will always be super high on until we get better like reduction, which I don't know how we can get better than a 2 cost search that reduces for 2 as well. And then the last options that I'm running in this are 2 Summon Frosts, which are a interesting version, like one more expensive than Sora, but basically do the same thing. You will trash the top 2 digivolution cards of all of your opponent's Digimon, and then if the effect doesn't trash somehow, because you've been source stripping stuff like crazy, if the effect doesn't trash anything, you can play a level 4 low Digimon card with the Ice Snow trait from your hand without paying the cost, and then until the end of your opponent's turn, none of their Digimon with any sources can attack. This works like Sora though, so if they evo and they have sources, then they are allowed to attack. So 5 is a lot. I use this as a security bomb, but being able to potentially play a free body is just really nice. The difference between this and Sora isn't really much for me, so we've been keeping it at Summon Frost because the 1 memory is kind of negligible in that aspect. And then the last option card I'm running is, of course, Hammer Spark, which has been hit to 1. My heart is sad. It's just nice. It's free memory. It's free real estate, everyone. It's free real estate. And then security attack is just gain 2 memory. If you memory choke them, they just lose their turn. That's so crazy. Yeah, there's a reason it's at 1. I understand that. But just, it's just nice to have. It's just, you stick it into any blue deck and go, yeah, okay, cool. But that is the Ice Cloud deck that I have decided on. Again, the reason you didn't see any Kumamons, Kurikakus, and the Tommies is the 3 cost evolution is a lot, and I'm already running like high cost evolutions that I don't normally do. And then the deck build changes in a very interesting way to me, and if we're being super honest here, the main reason I didn't build the Tommy version and the Kurikaku version is I really didn't want to go buy the Kumamons and the Kurikakus and like find the Tommies. So I just kind of made do with what I had. Like in all honesty, right? Like the Scot Imons, the Altards I pulled since I split a case with people, we traded around for these. Same thing with this with the third Suzune. The mental trainings I had from the decks, and some people like the Hexeblaumon was I borrowed from someone. So I wanted to try to stay within reason for this one and for my own budget, because this for me is a fun deck. It's not one of the main decks I would ever like play consistently. But I wanted to build something new because EX-08 was just so fun. So this for me was like, okay, this is relatively like budget friendly enough for me that I don't mind it. Again, ignoring the Hexeblaumon because that is on loan. But again, that could just be like a third Ryuga, it could be like a Gomamon, it could be maybe like another SnowAgumon, it could be literally whatever you want it to be like in this deck. It could be another option, it could be a 4th mental training if you wanted, it could be a 4th Suzune. But I wanted this to be as close to EX-08 as possible. But Ice Snow is hard because there's not a lot of them out there. I wanted to put Daimon. Actually, the card I really wanted to put in here was Blue Hawaii Death. Blue Hawaii Death is funny. But after last night, I think I might try to find space for it. But this is the deck. So again, tried to keep it as close to EX-08 as possible with just the other Ice Snow stuff happening and then old blue support. But some of those cards shouldn't be difficult to find, and they should be relatively inexpensive. So that was my goal for this EX-08 Ice Snow focus deck. So Thank you for watching. Bye!